information and some comments on recent developments. The reason for the interview format is that over the past weeks, we've received considerable interest in Intellego and a lot of questions. So I'm very thankful to the management that they've agreed to answer these questions or address these questions in this format. As a reminder, this call is being recorded and will be available on the company's website. With that, I would like to hand over to you, Claes.
Thank you very much, Tim. Very good to be here, and thank you for the introduction. And a special welcome to Hans. This is his first digital presentation, at least with our shareholders and investors. So very much thank you for that. So Intellego Technologies. We know that there are some people here that hasn't heard a lot about the company before. So we're taking a step back and going to explain, okay, what are we doing? And I think one of the things that we would like to mention first thing is the skin in the game that we think is extremely vital to have at Intellego. So, for example, myself has invested over 4 million euros into shares in Intellego in the last couple of years. Hans has a stock option program with a strike price of 226 per share. And if he decides then to exercise that, he needs to pay up around 10 million euros. I think that shows really what we believe of the company and how we see on the future of this company. And the reason why I invested the money, why Hans, believes in the future, is a lot thanks to this. As you can see here, Intellego has had tremendous financial success in the past with a very strong growth curve. Not only have we been able to excel on our sales, but we have actually also, in the same process, been able to increase our margin, making the company even more profitable. This is something that we've been doing for the last couple of years, and it's something that required really hard work, and we're extremely happy that we have been able to deliver this kind of growth. So that's great, but that's also the history. So how are things going right now? Well, we are really not slowing down. The Q2 numbers were something that we were really happy about. We had really strong growth on the revenue side, but we also had really a good, excellent, strong growth on the margin side. Something that was a little bit extra enjoyable and fun for us as management was also that the cash flow significantly improved, and we ended the quarter with about 100 million SEK, or roughly 9 million euros in the bank. So, okay, great. We had very nice past success. Okay, Q2 seems to be developing really good financial results also. But so what is behind all these numbers? Where are these numbers coming from? What do we actually do? So Intellego was founded in 2011. So we had about 15 years timeline to figure things out. We are a deep tech company which has a patented technology. As of today, we have granted patents until 2042. And what we do primarily is that we develop different kind of quality assurance tool for different processes or different production industries, for example. Our focus with these kind of products is to deliver, high quality product, which also then has a premium pricing. I am the largest shareholder with about 12% of the ownership in the company, and I've been the largest shareholder along the whole journey of the company's lifetime. So, okay, we sell these color indicators, what they are called, but we're also selling capital equipment. And we're doing this in specifically mainly these three main focus areas. So we have disinfection, for example, where you have UV disinfection, specifically with UV radiation in the healthcare space, so for example, hospitals, but also in the water space, where using UV radiation to disinfect water is actually one of the most common methods to disinfect water today. If you go to some of the biggest cities in the world, you can actually find out that the whole city's water supply is being disinfected with UV radiation. You also have food disinfection, where you're also using UV radiation, which is a worldwide spread method to disinfect fruit and crops, for example. Then you have our other one of our other big application areas, which is in UV curing. UV curing is a production method which is being used globally, 24/7, 365 days a year. This is a production method that is used to actually produce many of the things that we have around us today. It can be, the computer screen that you're looking at, or the computer, or your cell phone, or the furniture that you actually have in your home. Also, medical devices, for example, are being produced, can be produced with UV curing processes, such as medical adhesives, for example. And then we also have our a little bit smaller business area for right now, which is horticulture, where you can use, for example, our color indicators to make sure that the lighting conditions in indoor greenhouses are sufficient. So, okay, so, great financial numbers in the past. Q2 seems to have been developing really well. These are the application areas, but is there a market here? And if so, how big is this market? So if we look, for example, to the disinfection side and just look at healthcare, there's a significant market in that area. By the end of Q2, Intellego had, as a group, had revenue of about roughly 40 million euros. If we just look at the disinfection side, we estimate that that market is worth about 1.6 billion euros per year. These numbers are estimated by using the number of UV disinfection runs that are being done across the globe on an annual basis, and then using that to extrapolate. And if you then start to assume that one single dosimeter would be used for every run, that's how you end up on the 1.6 billion euro market opportunity. So I think it's fair to say that we have just scratched the surface. The group again has 40 million euros in revenue as of end of Q2. The market potential just for disinfection is 1.6 billion. So it's a massive market where we have a lot of work still to do to get access really to that. If we look at the curing market, we expect that market to be significantly bigger than the disinfection market. And a couple of different reasons. One of those is because the curing market has been around for a longer period of time, been around for decades. It's well established, well accepted, and it exists across the globe. And also, if we look at the horticulture side, there is a significant market potential to do that. So again, if you add all these market opportunities together, you get some really nice, big, fantastic numbers. But I think, again, we're very far from reaching those numbers, but we are definitely moving in the right direction. So a little bit on the success that we had so far, and why. Okay, so again, great success in the past. Q2 has been doing well. Okay, we have a solid product here, but why are customers choosing Intellego's technology? We as Swedish deep tech companies should be a lot of other companies out there. And the core thing that we have seen is because of the quality and the reproducibility that we have in our products. We can offer very stable products that are very reliable and very exact. And this is, for example, the big parts why we have been able to form collaborations with some really big companies out there. For example, Henkel, which is one of the world's largest actors in the PSA market, pressure sensitive adhesives. So that's for the UV curing side. But also Likang, which is one of the top 3 disinfection companies in China. with over 8,000 hospitals as customer in their portfolio. So yeah, we're of course very honored, very glad to have these companies as collaboration partners, and we look forward to expand these collaborations moving forward. So coming back a little bit to the financial side, as we have seen, we would like to claim that things are definitely moving in the right direction. Things seem to be moving very well. Revenue is developing very well. The same thing with our EBIT margin. EBIT margin, as we've seen, I think is actually better than what we have communicated long term. But also our operating cash flow, which is so important for the growth and to continue the growth, is also showing significant improvement. If we look at our balance sheet, I think again, what's our main takeaway from the Q2 numbers is really the cash balance that we have by the end of Q2 of roughly 9 million euros or 100 million SEK. And we will dive into the cash part and the utilization of that a little bit later on. So looking ahead, where are we going from here? We are firing on all cylinders. We are moving ahead in all the global markets that we have. Intellego has a very good strength in that we have a global distribution network. So we have the ability to sell pretty much across the globe. And our 3 to 5 year goal is to have a revenue of approximately 200 million euros and a connected EBIT to that of 60 million euros. So we're looking forward to getting closer to that target and to reach it as soon as possible. So I think that's it for the presentation. I know there is a fair share of questions. So Tim, let's dive into that. Sorry, Tim, I think you muted.
I'm sorry for that. You can't lip read. Okay, no problem. Thanks, Claes, for the introduction. So actually, I'll start with Hans. Hans, now you've been on board a few weeks. So what are your key learnings about Intellego so far, and also the UV market? Because I guess this is a new one for you as well.
Yes, so good morning and thank you, Tim. Over my first weeks at Intellego, I would say that somewhat 3 key insights stand out. Firstly, I've been struck by the company's strong innovative culture and also the willingness to support me whenever needed. And I think the company has built a very scalable business model, and the team has a very rare combination of technology expertise along with a very strong commercial drive. And then secondly, when it comes to the UV market, I believe that the structural growth is there, and the increasing global awareness around hygiene, health, and sustainability is driving demand, while regulatory developments and standardizations, they are increasing the adoption of UV solutions. I also perceive somewhat a fragmented market, which makes the company's technology and partnerships very highly differentiating. And then finally, some sort of forward-looking insight. I see opportunities to enhance our financial reporting and investor communication, and that we ensure discipline in the capital allocation going forward.
Okay. Can you share how the connection was made to Intellego and what made you join in the end?
Yeah, for sure. So my connection with Intellego was made through my professional network. And what convinced me to join, apart from trying to convince Claes and the board, was somewhat also threefold. First, I think the entrepreneurial spirit of the company, it's very agile, it's innovative and ambition in its mission. Then the business model itself is very compelling, with scalable revenues and a proven ability to commercialize the technology globally. And then finally, I would say the underlying business is already growing and profitable. And I think that is very rare for a powerful combination of a company of this size and stage. So altogether, I felt it was a very unique opportunity where I was very eager to join.
Okay, but certainly, as you already touched upon, there's also some work to do, I guess. So, what do you see as your main priorities, like for this year, next year, and beyond?
Yeah, so looking ahead, I would say first, I mean, I want to work closely with our CEO, Claes, as a co-driver. So we ensure we balance the entrepreneurial drive with some disciplined execution. And that really comes down to strengthening our financial governance, our reporting and processes, just so we are prepared for the next stage. I also want to prepare Intellego for a potential uplisting. I mean, that requires enhanced transparency, building investor confidence, and aligning our processes with the standards that are expected from a company operating on an even more regulated list. But as we all know, it's not only about meeting the listing requirements itself. We also need to demonstrate that we can perform and communicate at that level. And lastly, I would say, but for sure not least, I want to support the continued journey of this company and position ourselves as a trusted global leader in the UV market. I mean, and that also comes down to continuously aim to improve things like our working capital, accounts receivable structures, capital allocation, our people, etc., etc. So ultimately, trying to direct our resources to the areas where we see the highest shareholder value, really.
Thanks. That's yeah. Looking forward to that. So, Klaas, there's been a few comments on the low number of employees in the actual parent company compared to your almost market cap of almost 500 million. I guess that's a bit unusual for a company. And there's no actual physical head office or main office. So what advantages do you see in that structure, and could you address potential investor concerns about that?
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, man. I mean, it's I ran into an investor that said that, hey, you guys should have like a big penthouse suite in a corner office with big windows over Stockholm and mahogany table and all of that. But it's really, I mean, that's really not the Intellego DNA. Intellego DNA is really part of it is to be very, very cost efficient and cost aware. And I think that had been a part of Intellego's DNA from the beginning. So if you look at, for example, the first 10 years of um, Intellego being around, we raised less than 2 million euros in venture capital during 10 years accumulated. I think, to be honest, it's closer to like 1 million euro that we raised in total during these 10 years. I mean, I think that that just shows on a cost discipline, which is you know I haven't seen many companies actually have that. So when it comes to these kind of things, like offices and things like that, I mean, if we need an office, we can get it tomorrow. We have a co-working space in Stockholm where me and Hans can go and have meetings, for example. But right now in Stockholm, it's only me and Hans. So the reason, sure, we can get an office and have that, but to be honest, the way we think is that, okay, so say that we get a nice co-working office space, might cost 2,000 euros a month. That's 25,000 euros roughly, or 24,000 euros a year. We can take that money and hire, an additional R&D resource instead of that. And in addition, for example, both me and Hans, we live outside of central Stockholm. So commuting into Stockholm would be like 45 minutes if everything goes well, one way. Uh, and so we don't really see, why should we actually have an office because no one will be there and it's just me and Hans. That said, of course, if our staff in Stockholm is being expanded, we will for sure get a more fixed spot. But I mean, always have to judge and weigh like, is it worth it? Is it worth the cost? Or is it just nice to have? And if it's just nice to have, I mean, then we are not going to do it.
Okay, but I guess especially Hans would probably be building some sort of team, but that would not necessarily have to be in one place, I guess, with nowadays working opportunities, etc.
Yeah. But yeah, no, absolutely. But again, I mean, if we start to hire more people in Stockholm, I mean, we can get an office tomorrow. Yeah, we take it step by step. We don't see any reason to increase our cost basis unless we have to.
Talking about employees, so two rather prominent employees left recently. You've got a new addition also, but maybe can you just, on more general terms, speak about sort of the risk of losing key personnel and what steps you have in place to retain key talent?
Yeah, no, for sure. So yeah, there were two people leaving us, and I mean, this is two people leaving their job is something very normal that happens. It's not having any kind of material effect on Intellego, and I mean, we wish Mervyn and Mike all the best for the future. And I mean, the company is developing, the company is changing. Some people will leave, some people will join. So, for example, Mervyn, who was running our subsidiary in the UK, the Dero Group, he has left the company, but his replacement has already been in place since was it August? So that's a new person coming in, and he will be starting in the beginning of December. Um, so yeah, this is normal. And for example, now we are also looking to hire a head of PR and communication, and we look forward to communicate that here in the near future. So some people leave, some people join, and of course, keeping our key employees is something that we always look at. And I think the good thing with Intellego is that so far, we can do that on a personal level. Some people get more of a kicker of having stock options. Some people just want to have, a fun job. Some people just want to have a higher salary, for example. Um, so yeah, it's very much on an individual basis, and that's something we're talking about our employees with on a regular basis because we want them to be happy, we want them to be comfortable, and yeah, because yeah, if they are, I mean, then I think everyone is going to be happy.
Maybe just a quick follow-up. You just mentioned sort of one area where you would like, or where you're looking to add additional people. What are like the other key areas you're looking to expand in the next months or quarters? Yeah.
I think we need to add people in almost every area of the business. I mean, the company is growing really rapidly, and if we want to keep this growth going, we need to hire more employees. That's on the R&D side, the financial side, the sales side, the marketing side, um, and we're going to have to move people around, so shifting focus from one area to another. Um, and this is constantly happening, and the organization and company is constantly changing. So this is something that we have to do constantly, really, because for example, on the R&D side, I mean, we stuffed with projects right now, and we need more people in order to be able to execute on those projects. But I mean, finding a new person that fits in the organization, it takes some time. So you have to start to plan that ahead.
Okay. Thanks. So maybe let's move on to on your collaborations and corporations. You just mentioned two very important ones were in your presentation, Likang and Henkel. Can you comment on how important they were for the growth in the recent months and what you see in terms of their importance going forward?
I mean, yeah, Likiang and Henkel, of course, two very important projects for us from due to many different factors. Uh, we are very happy with the development of both projects, and we see that they are definitely moving in the right direction. But it's also, I think, important to mention that the scale up of these collaborations are taking time. It's not something that happens overnight. These are big organizations, has often quite long lead times. Um, and we just have to be, working together with them on a day-to-day basis, make sure that, we have all the support that is needed in the market and from a technical standpoint, and make sure that, we really have the best products out there in the market.
Maybe just a follow-up to those two clients, like with these big accounts, how does that order process actually work? Is it a centralized thing, or is it more a decentralized thing? And maybe just to get some color, how much lead time do you get, and how much time do you get to fulfill orders then on a, yeah, sort of on that respect? Yeah.
Yeah, no, so order flow is a centralized process. So it usually comes from one of the big offices in a region. Um, so um, yeah, so we get an order from one place, we deliver to another place, and then it's usually the products are being spread out across the globe from there. Um, so yeah.
And how much time do you need that's probably very dependent on the size of the order, but is it like, do you get like a plan for the, for a quarter or something, or is it like, hey, bam, this is the order, and then you have to fulfill it? So
Yeah, no, I think right now, because it's a scale-up process that is happening very rapidly, so it's extremely hard to really project exactly what will happen in the next quarter or so. For example, we have no control of like how big are the orders coming and how often are they coming. Um, what we are seeing is that the orders are coming in more rapidly. So there is a gradual scale up that is happening. So, and absolutely, I mean, if it's a smaller order, we can deliver it. I think some around 4 weeks or something like that. But if it's a bigger order, then it's going to take a longer time.
okay, maybe to follow on those sort of customer topic, can you estimate roughly how many customers Intellego has in total, and maybe how many ordered already this year?
I think I know that we have hundreds of customers on a global basis. And it's the variety and the size of the customers varies a lot. It's smaller customer that ordered a minimum order quantity like $500 or euros, up to the big giants which order significant bigger amounts where it can be above €1 million per order, for example.
In terms of sort of customer wins, can you say what percentage maybe came through your sales activity, or is it more customers coming through your proactive approach, or are customers actually approaching you?
It is a combination of all of it. I mean, it's everything from doing cold calling to other companies that have seen the PM about Henkel or Lekang that comes to us and say, hey, we saw that you're doing this with these guys. Because it's also when you get a big collaboration like that, all the other players in the market understands that, okay, Intellego's products are actually real and they're actually of good quality. So that gives you a running board into these new accounts. So it's a little bit like success breeds success. And yeah, it's great to see. So yeah, everything from we're calling up new customers to people see these PMs with big customers. Other people find us just through Google. So it varies a lot.
Okay. Can you, I mean, on sort of all, I think it's important for people to understand like how it's for a lot of people, I guess it's a new market, not a trend market where you can look up things online, because things happen in factories and behind doors, right? So can you just say like what is a typical order frequency of a customer? And I know this probably goes from both sides, but maybe just something that springs to your mind as an example, maybe what happened in the last weeks, or months where you could say, hey, yeah, this caught my attention because it was special for some reason. And maybe also, is there a difference between like the segments, curing and disinfection?
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, it's very widespread. We have customers, almost buying on a weekly basis, and then we have customers buying on, quarterly basis. So it's very different on how it's being used. Um, what I can say, for example, one of the big collaborations that we do have, in the beginning we started out with, okay, we got an order. 6 months later, we got the next order, but then the order after that came after just 3 months, and now that's being down to on a monthly basis, reoccurring orders. And I think me and Hans actually did an exercise on that, and I think we have about roughly 60% of our customers are reoccurring customers that comes back and buys a second time. So yeah, and that's a number we working hard on continue to grow.
And what is sort of the scaling model? I mean, just to understand what, how the one you mentioned, I don't know if this is a specific example we can elaborate on, but do they like test with one facility and then they start rolling it out internally, or what is sort of the normal, or well, normal, but what are usual habits or structures there?
Yeah, no, so it's very much usually a gradual increase, because especially among the big companies. I mean, the big companies, they really want to avoid risk. And for example, ordering a lot of products and just putting them on the shelf, that's a lot of risk. Because if something happens with the product, you show that you see that it doesn't work, there is something wrong. I mean, that's not going to be a fun situation. So what we see is that order, they sell it out to their customers, then they reorder, and then usually they increases their reorder. So it continues to gradually go like this. So there is no one that's coming in and just giving you a humongous order on day one. That doesn't happen, and it's yeah, it's not the way that we see that these big companies that we collaborate with at least are doing business.
And maybe a good follow up on that is, like, I mean, as you say, a lot of most of your customers or all of your customers resell the actual product, or a lot of them resell the product you provide. So how do you control that the product is sold through to the end customer? And in that respect, how do you control risk of returns or oversupply?
Yeah, so risk of returns. I mean, we don't have customer doesn't have any right to return products to us whatsoever, unless there is a significant quality issue. That's the only reason. Um, but what we do is that we work with our customers. We see how they order, we see how they pay. We also see the direct feedback from the end users of the product, and yeah, we follow up on that. So I think, yeah, those are a couple of factors to see that okay, is the product actually moving out in the market, or is it just sitting on the shelf? Because of course that's very important for us, because the product needs to be out there, need to be used. Otherwise, I mean, it's not going to provide any value. So, and I think that one of the big components there is that we see the end customer feedback coming in, and we can take part of that to see that hey, it's working well, it's going well, great.
Is that part of like the setup you have in what you've set up with your clients, that they have to give you that feedback, or is it that proactive feedback, or is it that the end customer is also in the loop in the product development, or how does that work?
Yeah, no, exactly. So the good thing with this also is that we get that constant feedback on. So then we can actually, when we get that feedback, we can already start to plan for the next iteration of the product. So like the 2.0 of the product. So that's really helpful to be able to plan for the future, and that's really how we stay ahead partly of our competition because we know what's coming. Uh, so, for example, a part of this was the development of our app system, where we have our app system, enables for you have an exposed dosimeter, you can take a photo with your cell phone. The app translates the color change into a numerical value interval. So you can get a much more exact readout from the dosimeter suddenly. Um, so for example, that was, based on customer feedback to see how, because then you can also, you get the numerical data, which is more exact. You can save that into an online quality system. And I mean, this just opens up, suddenly you go from the analog indicator to the digital app system, which, just opens up a whole new world for business opportunities, where, suddenly, you can lock in the customers in a way, which is really good. Um, but also, yeah, you can start to make a lot of money from that app system itself, by selling that also to the market together with the dosimeters. So yeah.
How how far along are you with that? Is that still sort of
For the app
early?
system,
Yeah.
we have paying customers for the app system, but it's also this the app system is it's being launched and aimed towards the professional industries. So this is not necessarily something that you will find in the App Store or Apple Store, or something like that. It might become available later on, but right now the way we do this, that if a customer want to be using the app, we send them a link, they can download it, they can use it, and yeah, they pay for it.
And do you think that will be a substantial part of your business model going forward, or is it still in the testing phase at the moment that you fine tune it in terms of what the revenue model is and how you integrate it?
Yeah, I think we hope definitely that it's going to be become a bigger part. And I mean, the feedback we're getting is very positive, but I would say it's still in a in an early phase. It's in a rollout phase, and yeah, we again, things doesn't happen overnight. This is going to take some time, but it's if we do it right, if we get it right, this can open a lot of new, very exciting revenue opportunities.
Revenue opportunities is a good sort of a good bridge to the next sort of part in terms of market potential. You've mentioned in press releases that you see a potential of roughly 10 billion second revenues in the future.
Hmm.
Can you walk us through like how do you derive that? I mean, you gave us an impression of the market sizes as a rough ballpark where you participate, but how do you go about sort of planning that out and taking your market share of that?
Yeah, no, exactly. So that's on a 3 to 5 year time scale, we see market potential. So if we do a lot of things right, we do a lot of investments internally, we see that that can be reachable. So it's not a financial goal, but we see that okay, it's out there and it can be reachable. Um, but yeah, that's a contingent on the disinfection market continue to scale as it is. Preferably we start to see more regulations, regulating the UV disinfection industry in more and more countries. And at the same time, we continue to scale on the curing side. For example, Henkel in the PSA field, that's one application area in UV curing, but there are also several others curing opportunities or application areas where we need to address. And then we need to go into those. And I mean, again, coming back a little bit to this, the people thing and our employees and things like that. I think, for example, that we need to hire a dedicated curing team for the future so that we can go after that market more and utilize all these other application areas in UV curing more.
So like be like coatings or paints or what have you, that kind of.
Exactly. I mean, if you look at the number of food packaging which is being produced today, I would say that it's a significant chunk that is being produced with UV curing. So, getting into the printing application area of UV curing would, of course, be very, very interesting. So, okay, so let's get in there. But, okay, just getting in there, not something you do overnight, and you can't spend 5 minutes on it. You need a dedicated team that really, really goes after that market. Um, so yeah, it's a combination of things of how to reach that 10 billion SEK.
And how would you go about like addressing a market like that? Would you make the product and then approach the customer, or would you approach the potential bigger customer, bigger account, and try and establish some kind of collaboration? Because maybe you also comment, I know you spoke to me about this, how long the Henkel collaboration, for instance, took in developing the actual product.
Yeah, no, so we always start with customer demand and the customer problem or issue that they are trying to solve. We tried the other way around many years ago to develop products which we thought that the market was interested in, and that didn't play out well. So it's super important for us to start with customer demand, see what they need, get the commitment from the customer that they actually want this product. What is the price point? What are the volumes? Then we start the development project. Um, that's how we do it, and that's the most efficient thing, and that's the best way to spend the money. Because if you develop something which is not connected to the market, I mean, it will fail. It's just a matter of time. And also, it's very important if you develop something new that you have a commitment from the customer, because sometimes you run into people that want to develop things, and but there is no plan behind it. And usually, if there is no plan behind it, then it will likely not develop well.
Um, can you say you just touched on the regulation part? There's talk about FDA regulation and regulation in China. Can you say how that tightening UV regulation could affect your business, the combination with your hardware business, and how that could hamper or even improve the business where you sell or lease or rent actual UV devices with dosimeters?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, first of all, we are very happy to see that these kind of regulations are starting to come into place. I mean, finally, you have to prove that these kind of devices actually work. In many countries in the past, there wasn't even that kind of regulation. So we're very happy to see that. China is, we would say, the front runner. They have come the furthest, and they also have the strictest regulations so far. Yeah, Canada is following that now, and also the US. Canada and US quite recently launched that, coming out with those kind of a new regulation. So, I mean, from a dosimeter standpoint, we think it's great because what we compare with is that sterilization, for example. So if you disinfect something, it's this clean, for example. If you sterilize something, it's even cleaner. And in sterilization, which is used, globally, um, is in many countries it's actually regulated by law or by regulations that you have to be using a color indicator with every single sterilization run. So, and only in the US, we know that over 20 billion medical devices are being sterilized every year. So, and sterilization is, for example, so if you have surgery and you have a scalpel and different surgical tools, you put them in a tray. and you put them into a big dishwasher, and it's being sterilized with heat and steam and things like that. So you can start to understand how big that market is if they sterilizing over 20 billion medical devices every year. And again, sterilization is mandatory with having a color indicator. So what we hope is that, and again, this will take years before it's being implemented. But what we hope is that UV disinfection market is moving towards that kind of regulations. Because if it is, it's just a matter of time before it's mandatory that quality assure that every single UV disinfection run is, being done. Because I mean, today, if you don't have a color indicator, you don't know even if the machine is on. And I mean, if you invest $100,000 or euros into a disinfection device, you have no way to really know if it's working or not. I think that's a bit, interesting. Um, so for the dosimeter side, that we think is very interesting, very much welcome new kind of regulations. For the capital equipment side, so the capital equipment that we handle through UVO, one of our subsidiaries, there is a new regulatory process that you have to go through in the US, for example, or in Canada. But I mean, we know that the devices that UVO is handling are working. They are good products. So you need to come up with some more documentation, but that's it. So we don't see any significant, hurdle in that sense.
Would you be doing that application, or is that the OEM, the provider of the device, that actually does the regulatory filing, etc.?
It can be both or either. So it depends a little bit on how you want to do it.
Okay, so maybe moving over to the more quantitative side. You've exceeded your guidance a few times this year. One could argue that your last guidance was already a low ball, maybe when you issued it, which you proved when you outgrew that 2 weeks later. So can you tell us a bit about how you think about guidance and what approach you take in terms of setting targets?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, exactly as mentioned, we over exceeded our share target, sorry, our annual target a couple of times. I think we learned the hard way last year, where in Q4 we actually missed our annual revenue target with about 10%, I believe. And it's no one was happy about that. The market wasn't happy. We weren't happy. So we took that to us and said that, hey, let's put more conservative financial goals in place. And that's what we have been doing in the last period. Fortunately, we have been able to reach those financial goals prematurely. But what makes it really hard is that, especially when it comes to big collaborations, is that we have really no control of, really when an order is going to come or how big that order is going to be. So this makes it, very difficult for us to make a very solid financial goal, set up really solid financial goals moving ahead. But it's something we need to learn and we need to adapt. And I think especially now when Hans is on board, we're going to be looking over that process and see how we can do it in the best possible way.
I appreciate that. I think investors would like you to have conservative goals and then over deliver. In the end, the last guidance sort of implied that you would have a lower financial performance in the second half year than you did in the first half. Is that something that actually can happen? I mean, you just mentioned that you have big orders coming in, and it's not. I mean, it's been a pretty straight line, but that doesn't have to be. Is that something you want to just put out there, that people that is something you might imply in the guidance at some point?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, a lot of things can happen out in the market, and I think turmoil can happen. You have wars happening. You have a lot of different things that can affect the market in different ways. So yeah, you have to tread carefully. And again, we rather focus on put some conservative financial goals and then try to achieve those as quickly as possible. But absolutely, I mean, everything can happen, and it's every day is game day. You can't relax a single day because I mean, yeah, you don't know really what's behind the next corner. I mean, we see that if we were seeing now that, of course, that there would be significant downturn. I mean, we would have to communicate that to the market. But yeah, we don't see that now for the foreseeable future at least.
Okay, so when now you've always, surpassed your current financial goals, in that respect, when can investors expect that you sort of reset your goals for this year?
When if we are going to reset our goals, or
No, I mean, you already surpassed the 400 million
Hmm.
EBIT sort of goals. So when are you planning to issue a new guidance, or will you issue a new guidance, or is that sort of
it will come in a quarterly report.
okay? Um, Mentioning the quarterly reports, some of the reports have contain typos or inaccuracies in
Yeah.
presentation. How do you want to ensure a more high quality reporting going forward?
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, that's that shouldn't happen. It's just very very unfortunate, and that's part of why we're extremely happy to have Hans on board. Um, to For him to help us with that, and really taking charge of that process, so that moving ahead, it will be yeah, a real solid and concrete report.
In that, yeah, maybe connection to that question, sort of what other kind of engagement formats, communication formats can we expect going forward? I mean, today might be an example of some new formats you're trying. So what are you thinking about, maybe in terms of investor letters, quarterly calls, or something similar?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's the communication front is something, one of the areas that need to develop further for sure. So, we're right now looking to hire a head of PR, for example. But then also, that's a part of a house job also. And, we're looking into how to, grow into the costume that we have. So, perhaps starting to do earnings calls after each quarterly reports, and things like that to help all the investors to understand, what are we doing, where are we going, what is the goal
Um, Talking maybe also about the reports, there are a few sort of terms you use like available liquidity. Can
here.
you explain what that actually covers and what are the non-cash components of that calculation?
Yeah, sure. So available liquidity, we classify it as cash in bank, credit assured receivables, and unused credit.
And that's sort of assured receivables plus the what you have as a bank draft, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, if we have an overdraft in the bank or something like that.
Okay. Maybe in that respect to the secured receivables, can you explain how that's EKN mainly? Maybe you can explain who EKN is. I don't know if everybody in the audience knows that, and how that system kind of works, and how do you select the receivables you actually insure?
Yeah, absolutely. So EKN stands for, in Swedish, it's Exportkreditnämnden, which is a Swedish government agency which is there to help Swedish companies to expand into global market and decrease or remove the credit risk for that Swedish company. So what EKN does is that if we have a receivable towards a customer, they can go in and credit assure that. So EKN goes in and pretty much take over the risk for that receivable. So for whatever reason, if Intellego wouldn't get paid, then we would still get paid from EKN. And then EKN will, make sure that they get paid from the customer in the final end. So this is a great collaboration for us. It helps us a lot. It minimizes the risk for the company. And yeah, it's a collaboration that's working really well, and we continue to collaborate with EKN. What can be good to know also is that you can do sort of a financial due diligence on the customer itself that are buying the product. So they're asking for the annual reports for the last couple of years, for example, to verify that the customer has the ability to pay.
And and how do you select is it by customer, or do you select certain orders you insure? I guess it's more the customer. I mean, obviously it has to be an export customer, but 99%, I think, or a high percentage point of your products are export products. So can you talk about the selection criteria?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, we only use as EKN when it comes to a little bit bigger receivables, because that's when it makes sense. That's where you have more of a risk. Um, yeah, we utilize this primarily on those areas, and primarily in areas where we don't have as good of a reach. For example, EKN usually, I believe this is the case. They usually don't cover Europe or North America, and they cover other regions like Asia or Latin America, for example.
Okay. And can you comment on sort of current volumes or volume restrictions you have with that collaboration?
Yeah, so EKN, I don't think that EKN itself has any upper limit on how much they can really credit assure. It comes down more on the company, Intellego, and on the customers. Uh, so of course, if you have a customer which is very, very big, EKN can credit assure a higher level on that customer compared to a small customer. So it depends a lot on what kind of financials the customer actually have, if and how much EKN can credit assure.
Okay. But in your annual report, there was a mention that at the date of publication, the volume was roughly 80 million. So is that like a ballpark volume range that people can think about what you're using at the moment?
I mean, the amount of credit assured receivables is pretty much a constantly moving target, because we get paid from previous receivables, and then we credit assure new receivable. So it's a bit of a moving target, but of course we are looking to maximize that opportunity in best possible way. Because I mean, again, is providing some really good value to the company.
Guys, we're getting sort of to the end of the scheduled call time. I still have a few questions. Are you available for a few more minutes to take up some more questions?
Sure, I am available.
Okay, great. So, in terms of sort of profitability, I mean, the dosimeters have high gross margins. How do you see that going forward? How defensible do you think that is? What could influence that? And then, I mean, as a drawdown, it sort of spills over to EBIT margin, which at the moment, I guess, is also very reliable on your very, very lean structure. You said you probably increase, internal structures and have to increase, but what can we think about sort of margin defensibility and profitability going forward?
Yeah, no, so I mean, right now our margins are developing, in a very positive way, as we have seen in the last couple of reports. Yeah, so we're very happy about that. But of course, I mean, it's as we grow, we have to be on our toes every day. We have to keep innovate, come up with better products, new products, do it better compared to everyone else. Because I mean, realistically, it's just a matter of time before competition is coming around the corner. But I think, looking at, coming back to Henkel and LeCun, why did they choose us? They could have chosen any company in the world to collaborate with, but they choose us. There is a reason for that, and that's because of the reliability and the quality in our product. Um, but again, we have to be very, careful. Keep innovating, keep developing, like the app system, so you create a better, type of lock-in mechanism with the customer. And even if the margins on the indicators itself would go down, um, then you can make the money back on the app system, for example. So yeah.
And what would be a scenario where margins could go down? Is that, a potential competitor, or maybe that would be really interesting to see. Do you see competition as, other chemical indicators, or would you see a potential radiometer competition as the more
Mm.
tougher in your personal view? And
Yeah,
maybe,
no, definitely.
so just one follow-up then, in terms of sort of actual margin. I mean, we had 70% EBIT margin in Q2. Is that something you feel comfortable with looking forward, or do you think that was a extraordinarily very good quarter, and it's somewhere between what we saw in the beginning of the year and maybe what we saw in Q2?
Yeah, I think 71% was extremely good. To be honest, I think I think it's fair to assume that that margin will actually, become a little bit lower, just because, what we mentioned, we need to expand our organization. So that's going to increase costs, right? And then that margin will come down a little bit. Um, but at the same time, if we hire more people, we should be able to sell more also. So it should compensate, counteract each other, those two things. So yeah.
If we move over, like, sort of the flip side, maybe, growth is great, margins are great,
Hmm.
receivables are high. Yeah, we've talked about sort of the EKN mechanism. You have some assurance there, but I think this is always the elephant in the room when it comes to your company. So how do you assess managing risk in terms of receivables? And maybe also would be interesting, is there a trade-off between growth and receivables or longer payment terms?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, and we also recognize that. I mean, we manage that by working with EKN, for example, but also primarily working with our customers. I mean, the customers that had a little bit longer payment time, they also have a longer history with us. So we know that, they pay their bills, they pay them on time. So that's how we work with them. So we know that they are solid, and that's why we are, comfortable with the receivables. Uh, so yeah, but at the same time, we know that, we need to keep an eye on it. It has been growing in, the last year at least, and we need to continue to work with that, and especially, lower the payment time for our customers to get the money in quicker. But it's always a balance on how you work with the customers there. But I think, yeah, the main point is that we feel comfortable around the receivables, and yeah, we know that we're getting paid.
Maybe to sort of put the finger on sort of an actual sort of number or development of numbers. So days of sales outstanding in Q2 was 170 days, down from over 300 from the end of the year, up a bit from Q2, but sort of on a general perspective, should we, is this a target going downward, or should we get used to that kind of current levels, or just as an indication, what can be expected there?
Yeah, I mean, that is something that we are working on to get that, a little bit lower. At the same time, if we, for example, have a credit assured receivable with EKN, we can offer a little bit longer payment term, because we know in the end that, we are getting paid. So that's something again that, we're working on shortening that payment term. But it's going to be a balance. So if we can credit assure with EKN, perhaps we can offer a little bit longer payment term.
In that respect, I mean, your clients are like maybe smaller outfit, mom and pop shops. In some cases, you have the big conglomerates, as you said, but at least for the one with the longer payment terms, you're playing their bank in a way as a growing startup company. How do you think about working capital management? Because I guess that's just a part of the market, and could factoring play a role here? That you can free up some cash there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we ended Q2 with about 100 million SEK in the bank, so we have a good cash balance. But absolutely, we can utilize factoring if we want to. Yeah, we have a lot of different opportunities to further strengthen our cash flow if we want to.
Okay. But do you already have? Are you working on? Is that something you could do with the current partners, or would you have to onboard, or have you already onboarded potential partners for that?
Yeah, so we can utilize factoring as of tomorrow if we want to.
Okay, interesting. The last part, or last two parts, is also on this one on revenue recognition. Actually, in your quarterly reports, the revenue by region has fluctuated very strongly, especially in Q2. What's the reason for that, and can you say what the criteria actually is for attributing revenue as you do it?
Yeah, so I mean, we've seen that in the past quarterly reports that the revenue per region can fluctuate significantly. It can go up and down, and that's just part of the that we are scaling or growing very rapidly, and it can be very binary. Like if you get an order delivered on the last day of the quarter, or it falls into the first day of the next quarter, that can make that volatility to go really high. And to be honest, we expect that to continue. That is going to continue in different regions. The geographical distribution, why it looks like is, I think it's important to understand also that just because perhaps one region has a significant part of the revenue doesn't mean that the products end up there. It could mean that we're shipping to a warehouse that is sitting in that region. So, for example, one of the biggest collaborations we have today, we get the purchase order from one region, we ship to another region, and then the products are being distributed globally. So the product end up all over the world, but if you get a PO and deliver it to Europe, but then that big company is redistributing it to, say, Latin America or the US, it will look like, hey, the revenue in the US or Latin America is non-existent, and it's just very high in Europe. But the product is actually being used in the other regions.
So did I get that correctly? It's where the sort of the bucket of regional sales is where you actually deliver the product to, the warehouse you deliver the product to, or the
so we where we deliver the products to, and where we get the PO from.
Okay, but that could be two different things, right? I mean,
yeah, for sure. So as we have it right now is where we deliver the products to.
Okay. Would you agree that there's sort of, as you just mentioned, there's sort of a bit of limitation in terms of informational value of how the revenue split is currently done? Are you thinking about maybe other geographical segmentation or other segmentation, maybe by product line or anything that could help investors more understand the underlying business as it currently is?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, that's something me and Hans is looking at, and talking to investors to see how can we make it more transparent.
Okay. Yeah, so the last part is actually about capital allocation. I mean, you've built a cash reserve in Q2. And maybe you could comment on your expectations on actual cash flow going forward. I mean, that revenue and margins and receivable management implies that in a way, but I think it's good to hear from you, like what your expectations on cash flow are and what your priorities would be for capital allocation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we ended Q2 with 100 million SEK in the bank, and I mean that money is more than enough to fuel our expansion, to hire the people that we need. So we have a substantial amount of excess cash. Just looking at that. So this is actually a matter that the board is sitting and discussing right now. So what do we do with excess cash? Do we just sit on it, or do we do acquisitions with it, or do we even go in and do buybacks or pay dividend to our shareholders? So yeah, those options are on the table, and that's something that the board is discussing at this point.
And I think you've partly answered this, but could factoring there be also a possibility if you find like a good capital allocation channel that you free up some more cash from the capital which is currently bound in your receivables?
Sure, absolutely.
All right, yeah. Looking at time, I think I'm done with the largest part of my questions. Definitely, I have nothing coming to my mind at the moment. So, thank you very much, especially to you, Claes, and I look forward to speaking more with you, Hans, going forward. And yeah, with that, I would like to hand over to Claes for some final remarks.
Yeah, no, thanks everyone for listening. We know there's been a lot of questions in the last couple of weeks. We hope we could clarify some of that, and yeah, we are looking forward to develop the company full speed ahead.
Thank you.